Yeah, I think we're good to start. I think the good place to begin would be just giving a little bit of a round of introduction, so you can get to know us and the speakers on the call. With that said, I'll kick it off. I'm Sid. I'm the head of AI and ML at Zeb, and we work very closely with the AWS platform and have a large team who has experience in the AI space on that. I'll transition it to Ranjit to give a little background on himself.
Hi, I'm Ranjit. I'm head of data science with Zeb, and I'm being with Zeb for the last 2 years. And I have overall 10 plus years experience in data space. And my primary work is to directly work with our AWS partnership teams and customers and all of them, and pretty much kind of giving customer solutions and giving them like primary insights around where the industry is heading towards and set them in the right direction, consulting them and providing solutions in that area. Thanks.
Yeah. And just to give a little background of what's the purpose of, today's webinar and what do we really want to talk about? At a high level, we really want to talk about how we've taken the overall data analytic roadmap to the next level with the rise in AI and really trying to support the need of self-service reporting, which is becoming so critical at this time. And we've achieved that with our own product that we built completely on the AWS framework called SuperInsight. So we both want to talk about, the the purpose of the product and why we built it, but as well as how AWS made it possible and actually brought it to, from vision to an actual real tool that we can use to this day, helps and actually help service real customers with very real problems of the mass reporting requests and over data overhead that they receive currently. That said, I'll transition it to give a little bit more background on, who we are as a company. So we kind of talked about a little bit of the agenda already, but just to dive a little bit deeper into it, we will be, first giving a little bit overview of, who we are, and then beyond that, the actual understanding the Super Insight product and what are the different moving parts. And then we also would talk about the process that it happens to, what do you have to do? What are the steps you have to take before you can get a Super Insight solution, right? Because a lot of the work happens at that core data layer, and what does that actually look like? And then post that, how do we envision Super Insight helping transform real businesses? And then talking about case studies and examples of with customers where we did just that and transform their overall reporting and data roadmap and where they're headed really. With that said, just to give a little background on who we are, right? Zeb is a company we've been around for 2 years. We're spin-off of a sister company, which was Avasoft, that's been around for 15 plus years now. But Zeb purely focuses on building within the AWS practice and leveraging AWS technology. We have a team of over 1,500 members at this point in time, and that's spread across, 4 global offices. The primary office being in India, with the most of our engineering and development team there, and then we have branches in America, Canada, and Ireland as well. So pretty large team and really excited on working on these, all trained within Ranjit and my practice itself. It's pretty much around 300 to 400 people who work specifically on the data and AI framework that comes on AWS. We are AWS Premier Tier Partner, and along with that comes the years of experience that we have working with customers, understanding their business problem, and also seeing how some of our pre-built frameworks and pre-built products can help solve those business problems directly, and if not, altering to our core competencies that we have as well within the Gen AI space, data analytics space, and our the core app development and networking competencies that we take pride in having as well, that help us build these custom built solutions for these customers and really help them achieve their technical and digital transformation roadmap that they have set out. So now just to back up a little bit and talk about Super Insight and the tool itself, right? With SuperInsight, I think it's it's a little bit more of a story as to, well, how did the product, even come to happen, or what was the vision behind it, and how do we come up with it? And that really starts with our bread and butter at Zeb is really working on these, core customer problems. We have products, it's not our main primary focus area. We're all about understanding a customer and the business problem that they have, and see how we can digitally transform their business and incorporate and take them to the next degree of technology. And that pretty much at all times involves incorporating AI into their business at this point in time. And we're a very AI forward digital transformation company, right? With that said, with Super Insight came to us when we met, one of our enterprise logistics customers who is pretty much constantly operating around the reporting and data that they have to make data driven decisions on their business that affect the day-to-day operations within that really transform it, like with those decisions, transform into actual dollars that affect the business, and how it transpires from there. That was enterprise logistics business came to us with a very large problem of the fact that they have pretty much almost 7,000 different reports that are present on multiple different reporting platforms, Metabase being the primary reporting platform for that. And they really wanted us to, and they have this large overhead of reporting requests, even while supplying these, even while having these 7,000 readily available reports. And that just caused a large backlog on their data analysts to get any actual work done, and actually working on anything but report these simple reporting requests and helping suffice that, and actually work on core things that would, affect the business in a much more important way, rather than getting backlogged with all the reporting requests and that they were receiving. This was the problem. And then to us, what this translated to, once we, and this is very early on, I would say, AI implementation. And so when we saw this, we saw the opportunity that AI presented in both its understanding of, natural language, and being able to understand what these business operational users are asking, to who want these end reports, and then also being able to have that complex technical reasoning ability and understand the underlying data schema business operates on. And then from there was really trying to bridge the gap, right? Where we take this, large data sets that we have that actually serve as the underlying data for these reports, along with the natural language, very business specific questions that the users have, along with the, user specific context. And by bridging the gap between these two aspects, you end up with a tool that can basically take any question that is very business specific, has jargon that is specific to the role that that user plays within that company, and then is able to break down that question and then map it towards the underlying data set that of that business, and then come back with an actual report that, clearly has what exactly they were looking for to begin with. We then saw from here we can even take this levels further, and we'll get to it in more detail, but turn these reports into visualizations. And then once we have an understanding on the previous data, now take that core understanding of the historical data to help drive these questions into a little bit of a outcome-based predictions for what is the future going to look like. From here, we've seen that with Super Insight implemented, we've seen that businesses are able to get a 10x faster question to insight answer rate, along with a 53% cost savings in the overall time that there's, actually spending on like overall cost that it takes to actually build these reports itself. And then an overall 90% reduction in the manual effort that it's going into perform, and the manual effort that it's going in to understand the report request itself from the various business operation it's coming from, and then be able to actually produce it. So this has been, a complete slash in the actual time analysts take towards, getting data, really taking, I think what one customer was saying, going from a penny's business to a nickel's business was the phrase they used once they had this implemented. And that's exactly the way we see it. And that's the way we see AI as well, where it's really about taking something that you already have core and a very business specific, company organization specific, and then being able to utilize that. And that the thing that you're utilizing is that core data set in this whatever structure that you currently have that in. So we talked about SuperInsight, but now we just want to talk about a little bit more of the moving parts, like what you kind of understood from that what the goal of the tool is, but a little bit of what actually goes into it is just from a three core features, output sets that can come from SuperInsight. We spoke a little bit about the visual generation, and this visual generation isn't just, like visuals that, can come from like a plotly based visual. We also integrate with the BI platforms that you use directly. So we can create these visuals directly with Amazon QuickSight itself and have that and have that surface directly to you. We also and then when we come to report generation, we integrate directly with your Amazon Redshift data warehouse, or even if your data isn't that mature, able to integrate with your Postgres or your Aurora DBs that are present as well. So connecting to the underlying Amazon data set that exists. And then we use Amazon SageMaker to then make forecasting based questions possible, starting to use the models that are registered within Amazon SageMaker to then help predict what some business specific KPIs will look like a week from now, a month from now, and whatever that timeline looks like. We can also use those to help classify some of the data and understand your customers better, and use it for customer segmentation, and then use that to tie back into the historical report generation that's there as well. So we've seen customers use this in various ways in various use cases that have all been essential into augmenting their entire reporting work stream. We integrate this tool directly within your Slack, your Teams environment, the communication platform you're used to, right? We don't want to take away from what you've already been driving with. We want to stick to your existing workflow and really have SuperInsight be a co-pilot that exists within that workflow. The SuperInsight also comes with, this context-aware AI capabilities. Leveraging Amazon OpenSearch and other services, we're able to keep into context, who the user is and the questions that they're asked previously to help guide our answers around similar paths. If you're used to using an acronym or a name, specifically like a nickname for some of the data that you're looking at, and you mentioned that in the past, SuperInsight is going to remember that in the future and be able to help answer your question on the first try itself, remembering the keys you provided earlier. We were able to schedule reports and automate when you get these data. So it's not always going to be user driven. It can also SuperInsight can also be proactive, giving you, real-time updates and, scheduled reporting when you need it and wherever you need it. We would also be able to do trend comparisons, take current data and that you're seeing right now that's happening right now, and then compare that same data point to what it looked like a week ago, a year ago, wherever it really is, as long as that data exists. And this can be in the form of a pivot, or of a pivot table within Excel that SuperInsight comes back with, but it can also be in a form of a visualization to show you how that trend has happened earlier. SuperInsight is also not just this, it's not just this platform that, once you get your hands on it the first time, that's all the value that exists within it. We believe at Zeb, we constantly believe in self-evolving value and a tool creating further ROI on itself. And that's why we implemented the self-learning capabilities that SuperInsight has, where not just remembering, the nicknames and the things you would provide earlier and the previous questions, it also understands where it went wrong, perhaps, right? Maybe it pulled the wrong data set or something that you weren't looking for, or something the organization specific term that SuperInsight doesn't fully know yet. If you want to provide it that context as a user, it will be able to learn from that and for ongoing requests the next time. so that the next person who's using SuperInsight doesn't face any issues. This has been using SuperInsight. The core underlying platforms of the core underlying Amazon services have been essential to making this platform happen. We use Bedrock and Bedrock multi-agent capabilities to help handle that model interaction, and then split out to these different agents to handle the visual generation, agents to handle actually breaking down that question and understanding it more and how it correlates to the business entities, agents that understand the data schema and able to generate queries against that data schema, and then turn those queries into reports. And then as well as our agents that can help with the actual finding out the right model that's present within SageMaker and help predict what that data looks like, days or weeks from where the current time and place it's being asked. Now, Ranjit will give a little bit of a walkthrough of what is taking a couple steps back, what is the work we do before we can get to a super insight ready solution. And a lot of that starts at that core data layer.
Thanks, Sid. So as Sid mentioned, like all the features in the SuperInsight is predominantly depend upon what is data present under the hood. And what I'm going to talk primarily about, meaning what level of readiness you got to kind of do today to enable SuperInsight in your data platform. So you can have any data platform. So if you're in AWS, you're using Redshift, you may have adopted like a medallion architecture, or you may have gone with like a staging data warehouse and then like pull all your data incremental and form your DIMS and facts in your actual enterprise data warehouse layer. Or if you have a data mart that you created, which is fine too. Like, so irrespective of what methodology that you have adapted to, either traditional data warehouse or like medallion architecture using Lakehouse concept, SuperInsight have the ability to plug and play in both the cases. And in some cases, what we have seen with customers is like even they have a transaction database and they wanted to connect to, you're using the AWS Postgres Aurora, and you have a read-only kind of scenario, you wanted to plug to the kind of read-only kind of server and then pull the data based upon that. SuperInsight have an integration to do that too. Data readiness standpoint, so basically we categorize our readiness into like a bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Depends upon the maturity level that you are today. So we could able to improve our kind of AI layer on top of it, which is a SuperInsight, where it try to understand what level of structure it is. And based upon the structure and based upon the knowledge base, and it clearly understand either like you are in a raw data that you did not transform enough to use it, or if you have like cleaned up one level and your data maturity is good, where you cleaned up all your issues in the data, or like at the third level, which is gold, where you have cleaned and you also formed your standards and you have like all your DIMS and facts that you created along with the metrics. So basically, if you have like a company level metrics like sales or finance metrics, and if it is cleaned up and formed in the way that you could able to easily consume in your report, SuperInsight could able to talk to those data as well. And the last is like a platinum layer. So basically, it have all the business industry logic embedded in it. What we have seen most is like typically we'll go back and talk to customer and understand what are the different questions are being asked on a daily basis, right? To the kind of your existing analyst team, or like if you have your existing business analyst or data analyst who's already there serving the data back to the individual business group, we try to go back and understand what are the different questions are being asked in the past. And for that, if we could able to compute it predefined in it, so then we will have create the data layer, we'll prep the data and maintain that in a platinum layer as well. And Siddha also touched upon the AutoML piece of it. All the AutoML ability that we do, so behind the scene, all the process runs and provide the insights back into the platinum layer. So now we have all the data prepared and maintained in this underlying layer. SuperInsight just go into the metadata that is created. So if you're using Amazon Redshift, and you may leverage your AWS Glue, where you cataloged all your like columns, tables, and data dictionary and all of that. So with this information that is available in the catalog, SuperInsight will talk to the catalog and understand what is the knowledge already exists. And if not, it will generate one. And two, we will also kind of feed in our industry knowledge that we learn from different industry area. And three, we also collect the tribal knowledge within your company and we feed all three into that area. So like these are the different data readiness that we do typically before we start the implementation. And once we have the data readiness done, and we will kind of go into the next level where you could able to talk to the SuperInsight user interface and ask question and generate the three different scenario, which Sid talked about in the previous layer. And second aspect of it, often when we go in, customer may have a use case where like, hey, I don't have a time to kind of do all of the data readiness first and go into it, which is fine. We understand it. For example, so we have seen customer where they wanted to enable this to an operation team very quickly and they don't have a time to do all of this. So what we do in that area is we kind of go from back to top to bottom where we try to understand what are the different questions being asked within the operation team and identify what data would be relevant for them to answer that particular question. We will just augment that very quickly in a standard that AI could able to consume and kind of provide answer to the user directly. So this is what we do behind the scene from a data readiness standpoint. And in the next slide, we'll quickly talk about how we transform the overall SuperInsight to a business. So before I go into deep dive into scenario, like I wanted to talk about the traditional approach, how we do with customers today, right? So today, you may have your business users who consume the report in multiple different manner. And I would say I have seen predominant of our customers who are like Excel savvy. They wanted to download the data from your existing self-service tool and kind of use it from there. Or they may have a scenario you would have put in, you may have created like a quick site type of a dashboard kind of and it's just a canned report, you could able to use it, or you could have created in a way that it's an interactive report where you could able to do drill down, drill through, like filter, and like you can do all of that in the interactive dashboard as well. Or you would have even enabled your power user to create the report and by using your predefined data set in the quick site. That's what the traditional report is, traditional approach is. But the problem in the traditional approach is your data team has to spend too much time in kind of generating those dashboard or creating those dashboard or creating those report. For example, we have seen our customers come back and ask the data team like, hey, can you give me kind of the sale happened in last 2 months and I wanted to understand how we doing from a revenue standpoint or like what are the different kind of shipments that did not fulfill in the right way. So there are different questions being asked back to the data team and data team will tell them like, hey, here is a dashboard, like go and use it. And some users like typically, okay, they will take a bookmark and they will use it. And some users in a business kind of scenario, like they don't want it to go into the dashboard. They prefer kind of asking question to someone and then they getting back the answer directly. And in those cases, typically the data team, like if they have a pre-built dashboard, they will immediately give the URL to them. But often you want to have the pre-built dashboard created. And so like, and they will have to spend time in writing a SQL query or spend a time in creating the report in the quick site or like even put together like a SQL query and create a very quick Excel report and give it back to the users. And doing this, like it takes typically what we have seen with customers is like the data team typically takes almost 5 days to 10 days to turn around. And even if you put like high priority, they would take a whole day to kind of get back to the report. And by doing writing the query and doing a quality check and verifying the data is correct and all of it is going to take bare minimal 8 hours in a day. And what we're solving through SuperInsight is you can cut down all of that. So since you already have your data source created and cleaned and structured in the way that we talked about in a data readiness, and QuickSight will directly talk to your actual data warehouse layer and provide the answer directly back to the business user. So with this, you can, so basically, if you are a team who's familiar using Slack or like any other communication channel, or if you have built any other application type of user interface, if you have like your ERP system or your TMS systems or any other systems that you have, we could able to build like a custom chat interface within that particular system, make your user directly talk to the SuperInsight and get the data that they want. So like this eliminate the time that your data team spend every now and then answering all the basic question. Since you already prepared the data and data warehouse and in the layer that it's structured in the way that you could able to easily consume it, AI will directly talk to the layer and get the understanding of that. And what we have seen, the other aspect of it is like customers right now, we have seen many customers who wanted to move towards like they are in on-prem SQL, they are in like SAP BW, or like they are in like Oracle Data Warehouse, and they wanted to move away to the modern data platform. And when they move it, one of the concerns that they have is like they have built a bunch of reports in the legacy platform, like SSRS or like Power BI or anything like that. And when they move into the data warehouse, modern data warehouse platform, one of the concerns that we have seen is where they had to spend too much time in converting all this report to the modern data platform as well. And like with SuperInsight, what we have seen also is like if you enable the SuperInsight in a day one, you don't have to spend too much time in building those report. You can quickly give a solution back to your business user team, like to have for them to ask question and get the data that they needed. So you don't have to wait until you convert all your reporting layer into your modern data stack. You can just move quickly into Redshift and kind of enable the quick side, so enable the SuperInsight, so you can just get the data that you want, and you don't have to spend too much time in building those reports and all of that. And again, I'm not saying you don't need to go with canned reports or you don't need to go with interactive reports. That's going to be there, but you can focus on where you need to spend energy. You can put your executive dashboard in your interactive report. You can have your canned reports to send to your executives on a daily basis, but your operations teams who are data savvy kind of people, they can just talk to SuperInsight and get the data. You don't have to build like full blown dashboard every now and then for them, because even if you build it, they will be come back like, oh, I need this view, I need that view, and all of that. So if you just give them SuperInsight, it's easy for them to ask question and get the data that they want, and it's personalized to them, and we add security on top of it. So like if you ask questions on SuperInsights, we understand who the user is, we apply the role level security on top of that, and that's what the user will get as a response back to the response as a data from the SuperInsight. So I'll quickly talk about one of our case study that we implemented, logistics supply chain customer. So basically this customer is, it's a similar to the use case that I talked about earlier. So they don't, meaning in a day one, they did not have anything from a data warehouse standpoint. So we quickly went in and spinned up a quick data warehouse for them, like within kind of 4 weeks span of time. And then on top of it, we have enabled the SuperInsight for them. And one of the concern that they had is also the same. They had like almost like 7,000 plus reports that they had from a canned report standpoint. And they had almost like 150 plus kind of interactive Power BI reports. And but all of it were running based off of the transaction database, which is like taking too much burden on the transaction database, and it's not performant enough. And they weren't able to run all the reports in the right time. And because your transaction database is causing all the slowness in it. And so basically when we came in, what we did is we enabled quickly like a data warehouse for them and brought in only the critical data that they wanted to solve within a 4 weeks, and primarily brought in two different kind of subject areas. One is like operation, two is finance. That pretty much cover the entire business that they were focused upon. And in that, if you know, like meaning all of you have dealt with finance and operation in time, to give a background. So we brought in all the kind of account payable, account receivable, and from an operation standpoint, we brought all the inventories, orders, and kind of fulfillment against the order. And we brought all of this information from it. And then like how we fulfill the kind of shipment with the carriers, and we brought that data in it. So basically it came down to 16 different tables, like on what we had to develop to support the SuperInsight aspect of it. So we quickly brought it up in the data warehouse layer. And then on top of it, we have enabled SuperInsight. And that's where like we brought in like individual kind of RAG model on top of it. So basically we collected all the Q&As from many existing customer, and we created a knowledge base on top of that. And if you see the diagram right now, so like when user could able to directly go to Slack and ask a question, and we have two different layers in it. Like if you see in the top layer, that's where all our Q&A happens in it. That's where the first block goes in. And in the top layer, like our questions, whatever the user asks for, it'll go back to the kind of AI, and it understands what the question is, and it produces a SQL query. We already provided the metadata of our data warehouse, and all of that is present in it. And AI will directly understand that particular data, and then it generates a SQL query. and it send it back to the data warehouse or a database, and then it runs a query against it and gives a result back to the user directly. And if the user liked the report, or like for example, you're asking a question around, hey, I wanted to get a sales report of the current month, and you like the report of the AI outcome, and you can go to the second layer in the diagram where you can ask to kind of say like, I wanted to get this report scheduled to send it to me on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and then we consume it based upon that. And we also have a mechanism to watch it. So if they are not often using it, so they sometimes they schedule it, they never open the report, and we send a notification back to them saying like, hey, you haven't used it for this many days. Like, can you, meaning, can you confirm, are you still using this and all of that? And then we still circulate back to the user as well. So this is what we did for logistics and supply chain, and give it back to Sid to talk about the next use case.
And Ranjit, I think two things I wanted to add on here is, data privacy was obviously a concern with this customer and in the way we built it. And that's the same concern we see across the board, right? It doesn't just apply to this customer. And that's why we made sure that SuperInsight is a solution that lives within our customer's environment, and it's not a SaaS tool in itself. And it's something that we take those 4 weeks that they're to actually deploy and implement it within that customer's where data warehouse and in that customer schema, and something we wouldn't have access to, right? And I think the other thing was also, like you were talking about, Ranjit, at the end, the tool also helps prevent the reporting overhaul of like the numerous reports that are still there that we still like have no idea who's using and when they're using it, and basically narrows it down to the reports that are being used. Because I think one interesting metric that isn't captured here is we took those 7,000 reports and through this process really analyzed it, and we're able to identify that really only 10 of those reports were really being used, but then 10 with small tweaks and variations here and there, which is why SuperInsight is the perfect augmentation layer for this reporting platform. Now transitioning to a different space in which SuperInsight help, where reporting is just as relevant and understanding your data is just as relevant. We were able to use SuperInsight within the financial services industry to really help portfolio analysts that were, leveraging this data help them understand their data better, right? At a way that a portfolio analyst would be within, a hedge fund context, right? They're not going to be the ones writing the SQL query in the data warehouse to understand what that data looks like. They also won't be able to be the people doing the modeling to help understand where, what does that data look like now, a quarter from now, and how does that affect the business. They also won't be able to, they also want to be able to correlate this information with information that they've taken notes on. Like, so if they're asking these questions about, you know, businesses or stocks that their portfolio mate is consistent of, they'll also want to take some of their portfolio notes and things that they're writing, their unstructured data, and use that to help correlate with what's the actual structured transactional data and that's representative of that current business. So this was the problem that a customer approached us with, and they have had over almost and they've had almost 300 to 400 different companies that we would have to forecast of predict what this information looks like, for handle what the predictions for, and handle what questions they could have off of that, and then handle that with whatever analyst notes that the portfolio analyst been taking on those companies, and really help correlate all these different pieces of information and in their various sources, and then be able to really ask these questions and get answers back to them that is comprehensive enough, that's coming from these different sources. And that's exactly what we did. We started at the same, data level before entering any of the SuperInsight core solution itself, by enhancing their data warehouse in that structure that Ranjan touched upon earlier, by building that platinum layer around the questions that they would be asking. And then once we have, and then doing the pre-processing on that data so that it's in a state that can be then used to be inferenced by the models that are surrounding it and predict what these metrics are going to look like that are relevant to this, company or stock that they're asking about a month from now or a quarter from now, right? And then finally tying back into the last piece of surfacing these insights through either a report in Excel or something in QuickSight that a portfolio analyst would be able to easily interpret and understand how to make a data-driven decision off of. By doing this, the the cost saving that occurred, it was really augmenting the data analyst layer and letting them focus on the modeling piece and not the reporting and not the insight driven piece and not assisting these portfolio analysts in providing exploratory explainability behind the data that they're looking at. Previously they were looking at just they were looking at just a dashboard that told them, hey, this is the where that we think this company is headed. But then we translated that into more of an explainability. This is where we think this company is headed. And then they were able to now ask, okay, but why? And by empowering that portfolio analyst with the ability to ask why, we were then able to, create to deliver insights that they never had, and also that they never didn't realize that they needed, but then became essential to their core business process. With that said, this also is a really good segue into, the demo that we're going to do, because we've simulated kind of what Super Insight looked like in a financial background, and an accumulation of these different sources and how these guys would have used the tool. I'm going to now switch my screen share and pivot towards that. Just give me 1 second. And we are saving questions for the end, so feel free to, even now take the time. There will be a question box in the Zoom, so feel free to take that time to get your questions ready, and we'll be happy to answer them. Ranjit, just let me know once you can also see my screen.
Yeah, I can.
Sure. So, like I said, this is like the Slack channel that, Super Insight would be working off of. And we can now, ask a very specific question. So we have obviously different ticker. We call this the little hedge fund analyst, and Super Insight has different ticker. We've accumulated all the different tickers that make up this hedge fund's portfolios and the companies that they look at, and now we have consolidated all the models themselves, the modeling behind this that lives within Amazon SageMaker. And now we can take a general question like, what would be the next quarter's revenue for Revolve, which the beauty group, but be able to ask this with just the acronym just the stock ticker itself, right? And be able to then not only get in reply to this, not only get an answer from a data perspective as to what the model's prediction would be for what the next quarter would look like, but also get, because we have this agentic structure working in the background, also get insight from the internet and filter out that data to help also correlate between the market as to, well, we're predicting that the next quarter's revenue is going to look like this, but this is also the why behind it, by providing market insights and help correlate those two connection points. And so in just a little bit of time, Super Insight will start to develop that response, validate the information it came back with, and then come back with a comprehensive answer saying, well, we think, Revolve is projected through the model that it interacted with. It uses in the model, it finds the model that would help with predicting where Revolve would be. And it says, Revolve is projected to generate, how much ever in revenue, and then also provide some explanation as to why, coming from what we're web scraping in the market insights that we're delivering here. And we can even see this in an Excel format if we went into it. And so I think this is a really revolutionary use of the tool itself, and really helped drive as a core accelerator behind how the hedge fund space, but how it can really be applied to any space, right? Because at the end, all we're doing is taking these agents that are experts in their own regard, one being an expert on the market space and where the market is with Revolve, one being able to break down the question itself and understand really what the user is asking, and then one being able to then correlate the insights that the question that it gets broken down into to the actual models that are available in SageMaker, and then help inference those models and then help drive that overall prediction. And then finally, that orchestration layer that talks to these different pieces, talks to these different agents, and then comes back with a consolidated answer. So we saw what the prediction looks like, but let's also see how we can use historical data and then show that represent that data on a quick site visual. So we can also ask a question like, okay, well, show me the revenue trend for the past 8 quarters, right? And then SuperInsight does its little agentic process and goes back to the drawing board, and now it's going to be interacting with a visual agent, a web scraping agent, still the same data agent, and all of these different agents to then help formulate a response. And it's all kind of happening in parallel. So we may see web scraping agent show up every now and then. We may see another agent show up, but they're all kind of being worked on at the same time that'll help bring back the answer that's coming back for these questions. So these are, some of the real use cases where we use this. And so yeah, now we see the visual agent get triggered, coming back to that orchestrator to then, format together the overall response. And once we have that information, we should be seeing a visual. Yep. So we can see the visual that comes back as well, showing what those, next quarter, the previous past 8 quarters have looked like for Revolve, as well as get that same, understanding of the explanation itself as to, what do we look like in Q4, what do we look like in Q3, and what's that year-on-year growth look like, as well as why, what some of the reasons for what has been the key growth drivers behind this, and what's been reason for fluctuation within Revolve space. And we then also wanted to show, how industry specific the tool can be as well. So the Revolve is we at this point we were just talking about a general metric and KPI like revenue, and so maybe that a model would have an understanding on that. But we also talk about it in the context of logistics, a more industry specific question where the information and the underlying data set itself has a little bit more to it. And so there where we'd be able to ask a question and like, show me the trend of loads for the past 6 months. And again, this is a visualization, so SuperInsight will work with a visual agent for getting this information, but I'll also have to understand the data set itself that supports the data behind the visual and the different shipments and loads that XPO, a logistics company, has been experiencing. And then we also want to try to correlate to the business insights that might come from, what the market is saying about XPO and maybe even recent changes that they've been doing. And once all those agents have, spoken a little bit together, kind of comes back with the response as to what XPO's been doing, what have been those load volumes look like. And we have data here for till September of of XPO's metrics, so it'll only pull whatever information is actually available in its underlying data set. And that's been and it talks about a little bit as to why as well from the same market sentiment agents. And I think this has just been a really great use of how we've been able to leverage some of Amazon's most recent developments like Bedrock multi-agent and like the abilities that they've given us through the QuickSight platform directly, as well as SageMaker to help make all these connection pieces and integrations, work seamlessly together, all living within one platform. And that really concludes the demo here. So I would love to open it up to questions and some things of what thoughts that may have been triggered from these conversations and understand how SuperInsight could be applied elsewhere. Donna, just let me know if the questions have been opened up. If it's been opened up to questions. I see one question now. Will Super Insight understand business lingo? Since fintech involves complex language. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is an excellent question too, because it's the question we hear most often as well as to, well, how business specific, business context driven can Super Insight be? And I think it goes back into the core underlying data and context we're trying to drive at that platinum layer with SuperInsight, where we don't just when you're interacting with the platform, you're also it understands you as a user and the role that you play within the organization. So the questions you may ask from that role. it also tries to through that agentic structure, it breaks down your question into pieces and correlates each piece with the entities that exist within the platinum layer of your business and what the context is, right? So even when you're using super business specific questions, you're still going to get accurate answers that understand and able to make correlations behind that information, because that's what the platinum layer and what the data it's been trained on is meant to take care of. Any other questions? Will Super Insight help me providing me with Sigma visuals? Yeah. Super Insight does integrate. I mean, maybe it'll be better if I let Ranjit take this question.
Yeah, in short answer is yes. You can have any visualization tool, and we will have Super Insight integrate with it. And so basically, Sigma have a API to generate the UI. And if you have the dataset already connected, and we are happy to generate it through the Sigma visuals directly. Yes.
Any other questions that may be there from the session? Just she was asking about, how many DBs will Super Insight be able to question and get back the answer to, since businesses have, various data sources. So the whole point of this comes back to the prep work and the data readiness step that's involved within Super Insight, right? And to repeat Sarah's question in the chat, and I think that's also an excellent question, because the core, I think the unique aspect of Super Insight is that the goal of all of this is to work off of that one consolidated data source that is that underlying data warehouse. And what that data warehouse and what that platinum layer is trying to represent, it's basically trying to map out what all of these different other databases and data sources capture. And so even in that last example through the demo you were seeing, we had different sources of information coming from the web scraping, coming from the underlying data set that exists within the databases and the transactional information that the hedge fund has on these companies. And we were able to use both pieces of information to then help correlate and then build that, little graph that represents that business and the question itself. And through that, we're able to answer those multi-data sourced questions in one comprehensive answer and come back. So really, there's no limitation on the number of sources, because the framework is anyway doing consolidation and building one overall contextual, comprehensive based answer. Hope that answered your question. And the next question is the webinar available for further consultation? Or is the webinar available for further consultation? Yeah, absolutely. We will be sharing the webinar on YouTube and posting, uh sharing this everywhere pretty much through there, and you'll all have access to it, so the recording from it. And then we'll also be able to, we always have a sales deal that we share. So you can reach us at sales@zeb.co, and if you actually want to double click on any of these, we would be happy to have a free consultation meeting where we just talk about how Super Insight would be used within your business. Do you want to take the ROI question?
Yeah. So yes, and Emily, in short, like in terms of how much it provides ROI standpoint, it pretty much meaning for the investment that you're going to make down the line, it'll be 100%. Like within, if you say like within a year, you will definitely be like 100% in the investment, and it's going to go beyond that. If you really ask us, like if you are spending some amount of your money in terms of your reporting tool and the number of licenses that you have, and you can completely avoid spending the license from a user standpoint when you switch it back to the Super Insight. That point of time, it's just fully AI and kind of AI driven structure. So when you get there, you're just going to pay for the AI. You're not going to pay for the individual user license. It's going to be much more cheaper. So yes, it will be somewhere around, to begin with, within a 3 to 4 months, you'll be somewhere in 40%, but depends upon the size of your organization. You can reach pretty quickly the 100%.
Yeah, and I think the other real value proposition that comes from it is the time that it lets your data analysts, who are hired and are very technical and can work on much more complex based, the CAN reports that Ranjit was talking about, or maybe even the modeling aspect that has to be done, and work on these much more complex data problems, and frees up their time to do that. and reduces the amount of reporting overhead that they have to deal with these large reporting requests that come from your, your operational teams, right? So the more that comes from that side, and it can instantly accelerate the ROI that you would get from building with SuperInsight.
Yep, that's interesting. So, and also from a business standpoint, you may have a specific business user reaching out to your data team, and they may have a customer waiting based upon the data that they need to process. And today, the whole process takes like 2 days or 3 days to turn around. With Super Insight, you're going to turn around within a fraction of seconds. You're going to talk to Super Insight and get the answer out. So that also you have a better ROI in the picture too.
And I think, Dave's question is, can the data set be loaded from any cloud or physical storage? Yeah, Amazon does allow a lot of core integration possibilities, through it. Amazon can assess we are able to stream data in from physical storage locations or other cloud providers and bring them within Amazon, like a Amazon data warehouse that using Redshift. So we're able to use those core integration services to pull that data in, and we've
Yeah.
had multiple customers as well.
Yeah, and we also have AWS Glue. So Glue have out of the box connector back to if you're using Salesforce, if you're using any other platform kind of scenario, you can directly talk to the API and pull the data. Or if you have any databases that you present in different cloud instances, and Glue can able to talk to that and pull it. Or like if you have a physical storage in your on-prem that you wanted to pull data from, and Glue have ability to connect to it and pull the data back into the platform.
That's good. Yeah, and I think I think that is all that there's there for the questions that we received. We would definitely appreciate hearing your feedback on the session through the poll. I think Dhanshaker sent out. And, like I said, we are happy to do a free consultation meeting where we just assess within your business how Super Insight can be leveraged and, how it can be used to then deliver that ROI that we were talking about earlier, right? And we would be happy to have that conversation, and not just within a Super Insight context, but also your general data and AI roadmap and what does that look like for your company is something we would absolutely be love to help with. Okay. Thank you guys. It's been a great webinar, and we will close it off with that. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for joining.